All right, guys, welcome in. It's the Kodiak, and today I'm going to be bringing you a little bit different of a style of video. So, yesterday I did a little live stream collaboration with David of David Talks Broncos and Marc of Marquee Sports Denver, where we talked about our least favorite guys in Denver Broncos history. Wasn't exclusive to players, we also did coaches and executives. And I just want to say, if you are not subscribed to these two great Broncos creators, go ahead and do that. Kick back, relax, and enjoy, because I think you guys are going to love watching this as much as we loved talking about it. So yeah, I'll see you guys at the end. Enjoy.
Yeah, no,
What
good
could
point
have
there.
been? What
Yeah.
could have been? But let's get to the fun question. Speaking of PTSD, let's reminisce on some Broncos history. I think the original question was, uh, who is the worst Denver Bronco of all time? Maybe we could switch this with like, who's your most hated Bronco of all time? For me, there are some different answers.
Me too.
So yeah, maybe we could just have a conversation here. If there's somebody that really needs to get this off their chest, be the first at it. And y'all let me know in the comments too. Like,
Yeah. So
yeah,
are we doing worst first?
yeah. Let's start with worst.
Oh man, by far and away, for me it's easy. I've never seen a player actually be this bad in the NFL ever, and that's Paxton Lynch. The guy was unbelievably horrendous in every single way. Yes, he's on my hated list, but he's not my most hated. But Paxton Lynch was horrifyingly bad.
Well, break it down for us. Like for those that don't know the details of why Paxton Lynch is this.
Yeah, and maybe he's like on a little bit more of a pedestal because we traded up in the draft to get him in the first round, and everybody's like pumping him up. But Paxton Lynch legitimately was this guy that like 6'7", 245 pounds, unbelievably athletic, crazy rocket arm, and when he finally gets his opportunity to play, like granted with Gary Kubiak, one of like the best, most offensive friendly teams, he played with him for a little bit, like a couple games. He wasn't even good at like handing the ball off at times. Like I think he tripped over his feet once, or he turned the wrong way. That the handoff was supposed to be the other side. He's always like doing this, like trying. It's always pissed me off. He was always like doing this, trying to hear. They're playing at home. It's like the guy was ridiculous. And then you'd hear him in the post game, and I think Kodiak had a pretty funny story about Paxton Lynch too. But you hear him in this post game, and the guy was like just dumb as a rock. And he was terrible. And then he's crying on the sidelines because he's playing bad. Yeah, I mean, it's like there's a lot of different levels of stupid. Not just like you're a bad football player or because you don't get it cognitively, but it's like just the awareness of certain things. He just even lacked that. So yeah, he was awful in so many different ways.
Yeah, Paxton Lynch was he is. I remember when I was 15. I remember I heard C. Salami talk about 104.3 how like for a month how he wanted the Broncos to draft Paxton Lynch. And, when it finally came to fruition, the dude just absolutely cratered. Like, I don't remember when it was. I think it was in his second year against the Raiders where he just looked absolutely awful. God awful the whole game. Like, we were running like an 8th grade football playbook, and then he was crying on the bench. And then he was like, he goes to the post-game interview, and he's like, I thought I played well. And then I remember listening to Schlereth the next day, and Schlereth was like, I'm not even going to comment on that, but no. I've personally come across Paxton Lynch, not going to say where, but he did not strike me as the most, how do I say, intelligent dude. And, from what we were able to figure out with all the reports going on about how he wanted to play Madden more than he actually wanted to master the Broncos playbook, I think that ended up holding true. Like my evaluation of meeting him held true. But what I can't understand is I was able to find that out within like a 45-second interaction with him. How were the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Broncos all interested in him at the exact same range in that NFL draft? Like that just absolutely blew my mind. And blew my mind that, he was able to get past the filter of, their combine interviews, especially in today's world. Like he was pretty lucky that he came out 8-9 years ago rather than today.
Could you guys imagine if we let the Chiefs get him and they would have never drafted Patrick Mahomes?
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
one more thing on Paxton. I forgot to mention this. So, I mean, if someone's bad, like when you're a first round quarterback, you'll always like at least get multiple opportunities in the league. Like it's just look across the board. I mean, guys literally will be backups and have jobs simply because they were first rounders, especially at quarterback. He literally just played for like 2 teams. I mean, I know he technically played for the Steelers, but I don't even think he played
preseason, Steelers and Seahawks.
Or it was he played for he went to the Seahawks, got cut after preseason, and then went to Pittsburgh, and I think he played like in a game there or 2. But he got cut from 4 different CFL? Yeah, CFL teams. 4 of them.
I think he might have played in the XFL too and got benched. Like it just.
I was about to say.
Yeah, the USFL. He played.
Last I heard of him, he was in like the UFL or something. And did he like play? Like, did he even play? Was it like a Johnny Manziel situation where he went like 0-5 and threw like 15 picks or something?
Well, no, he played for Orlando.
Okay.
Or in the XFL, and he went 0-5. He had 4 touchdowns and an interception, but he also averaged like 96 yards a game.
Wow.
But I mean, getting cut by 4 Canadian Football League teams, that's crazy. That's crazy. But Kodiak, who's your worst?
Oh, I did want to chime in on this really quick.
Yeah.
Oh yes, go ahead.
Paxton Lynch is definitely up there because I think of how much that hindered us for the last 8 years or so, just with not finding a quarterback. But again, it's just chatter that you hear about how much grinding was Elway really doing on these prospects his last few drafts, which were just absolutely horrible. I think we didn't even meet with Paxton Lynch before drafting him. Y'all might need to fact check that, but
no, I
that's
think you're
at least what I believe.
Same with Chubb too.
And yeah, maybe if they did happen to, I just remember Paxton Lynch after he got drafted. Bo Nix ready to go get to work right after getting drafted. Paxton Lynch going to go party on his boat all weekend. I remember him saying that, and I just got, I didn't want to believe that was a red flag. It turned out to be, but I think what really is the crusher out of this is that Paxton Lynch was all about he was the traitsy guy. You watch his Memphis highlights. Oh my God, how can you not be tantalized by him as a quarterback prospect? But it was because of the massive failure he was that we passed over Josh Allen for Bradley Chubb. And we didn't want to draft somebody like that again. And it's just a damn shame of what happened. And now we've had to wait till 2024. But we finally got our guy.
Thank God.
Yeah. So I want to kick this one off next. So you guys, 5 years ago, I remember in the offseason, 2019, January 2019, I remember extensively looking at, football content. And at that time, we had just hired Vic Fangio to be our head coach. Now, in that free agent cycle, I'm pretty sure we brought in Kareem Jackson, but there was somebody else who we brought in the free agency cycle who I don't think how many snaps did he play for us? Like, was it? I remember
something.
Yeah, I remember. So, of course, I'm talking about none other than Juwan James. And I remember back then seeing a report saying that the Broncos had made Juwan James one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the NFL, and the Miami Dolphins were absolutely laughing and pointing at us.
Right.
They were just like, what absolute idiots. And I was just like, 18-year-old me was just like, haha, that's copium that they lost their dude. No. It was actually bad. So in 2019, he had like that weird knee problem. I remember he got hurt like early on in the year, but he couldn't like play without, his knee buckling or whatever. I was like, all right, whatever. We'll see what happens. 2020, he completely opts out of the year. And I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to go after any dudes because, but if I was getting paid $19 million a year, I would at least have the honor to at least play for the team. That's just me. Like, I'm not trying to make a politically charged statement there. But then the next year, in April, he tears his Achilles working out at a facility away from the Broncos practice facility. So then what happens? The NFLPA gets involved, and then the Broncos end up cutting him. And it was within their right to do so because he got injured at a non-Broncos facility. And the NFLPA gets involved, and they're just like, no. Blah, blah, blah. They got mad at us, and, everybody's like, nope, completely within our right, completely within our jurisdiction. Just terrible. We were the Browns of right tackles for a long, long time. And, it's part of the reason why I was fine with overpaying McGlinchey, and I still think he is a little overpaid. Granted, he played, I would say I'm pretty happy with his play this year, but we were the Browns of right tackles for a long time, and Juwan James completely summarizes the fact that we made him one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the NFL. It basically sums up our right tackle situation, from Orlando Franklin to now.
You know what's crazy about that? After we cut him, he ends up signing a 2-year, like $9 million. I'm looking at it now. $9 million deal with the Ravens. He doesn't play in that other year because he's still rehabbing his torn Achilles from the year before. Wow. He finally gets activated in 2022, and in the season opener, he tore his Achilles again, and that's how his career ended. That is crazy, dude. He collected $70 million and played like 11 snaps. Sign me up. I'll tear my Achilles 3 times.
Wow. Insane.
I didn't even know, because when after him, I was like, I forget. I don't even want to track your career. So I had no idea he even kept playing. That's a good one.
Now, I've gone back and forth. I guess I'll talk about my most hated Bronco second. But firstly, I think probably the worst Bronco in my lifetime from expectation coming in, just like how great he was in college, to what happened. Maurice Claret, man. We used the 101st overall pick to bring him in. One of the best freshman running backs ever. Of course, missed his second season or whatever. We're able to bring him in. And you would have thought, man, using a 3rd-round pick on a running back, he was going to be somebody that was going to come in and hopefully play a substantial role in the offense. Again, he's freaking Maurice Claret. But sadly, this dude showed up drunk to practice. This guy was drinking during practice, which is just mind-blowing, to just think about. And I think, again, for the player that he was in college, to not even making it out of his rookie training camp, getting cut, just a massive failure. I'm glad he's cleaned up his life after all of that. But I think, Mark, you brought up, this isn't the first time we've had a running back just have an alcohol problem coming into their time in the NFL. We also had Monte Ball go down that same road, which is also just mind-blowing. Both incredibly talented backs. I think Monte Ball we used a 2nd-round pick on, and both were just massive busts for us. Now, my most hated Bronco, I think right now, is also at that position. And I've never really been the biggest Philip Lindsay fan. Like, it was a good story. But again, I'm even a CU guy, fantastic at CU. But with the Broncos in the NFL, a little bit different of a story. I know he never fumbled once in his whole professional career. But what also he didn't do was break a tackle or catch a pass. Like, the guy had hands of stone. I understand why Elway went and signed another running back in free agency. That pissed a bunch of people off. I didn't agree. I didn't agree with those people initially, but man, I hate Melvin Gordon, man. That guy epitomized everything wrong with this dark age of Denver Broncos football. Just in one player, a guy that overpaid, you have expectation, probably on the downside of his career, but was soft, was always whining, and in crunch time just had a propensity to make a game-losing play. And what even pissed me off even more is that when you go and you listen to his interviews that he's doing around this time or talking about his time with the Broncos, he's always talking about I had a feeling that I was just going to fumble the ball. What?
That's a vote of confidence in yourself if I've ever heard one.
And we paid this guy $8 million a year or whatever, and it was even worse because his last year with the Broncos, of course, he's buddy with Russell Wilson, he's buddy with Nate Buddy Hackett, and Hackett just continues to play him even after he starts, complaining that he's not getting enough touches. And while he's fumbling, Hackett continues to put him out there, and he continues to fumble. And for a signing that I was excited about because I thought that him and Philip Lindsay might have a pretty fun dynamic, I feel like both of those guys just ended up resenting each other, hating each other, and it divided the fan base. But then ultimately, we all united around just hating everything that Melvin Gordon stood for. I've had friends that are friends with him or that knew him during his time in Denver, and he seemed like a really cool guy. Like, outside of football, and from what I understand, he was like liked by the majority of his teammates in Denver. But that man did nothing to get the fans on his side, and again, just epitomizes this era of suck for the Denver Broncos. It was Melvin Gordon, man.
Yep, he was the number one on my list for most hated.
Really?
And I think he had an alcohol problem too, man, because he was like drunk as shit, talking to the police officer saying he didn't drink anything. I'm like, dude, you can't even say your name. And then Juwan James was my second most hated. I have a little list here. Do you guys? You're going to be too young to remember this, Kodiak, for sure, but maybe not. Most likely, Eddie Kennison.
I knew you were going to bring him up, dude. Eddie Kennison was terrible.
Eddie Kennison was signed. We signed him in, I think, 2001, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And he was like a pretty highly touted, NFL receiver. Like, I think if I remember, Mike Shannon was pretty pumped. It was like a pretty small contract, but he was really pretty pumped to get him. And like a few games into his first season with the Broncos, he ends up retiring, saying that like, his wife had a failed pregnancy, and I think his father recently passed away. So it was like awful. He made like everyone feel terrible. Like, okay, no problem. You're 28 years old in your prime, but like he retired. Oh, she had a complicated pregnancy, and then his father had a heart attack. And so they cut him in like November of that year. And then a month later, he comes back, he signs with the Chiefs. And the guy was forever hated, man. Like every single game, Broncos-Chiefs game, people were just like losing their minds at him in the stands. So Eddie Kennison was one of those that I feel like was an honorable mention. And then, of course, I had to mention this. I know I've been going for a long time, but Marquette King, the punter,
you're mentioning him,
is a terrible person. And like you don't, and player, well, you just don't have, I feel like you don't have the right to be an asshole in any way if you're a punter. Like that was the worst part of it. And that guy was such a jackass just because he can like boom the punt. So yeah, definitely one of the guys that I hated.
Who was it from 104.3 that he ended up like getting?
Zach Bye.
It was Zach Bye of all people.
I think it was his like first year in Denver radio too, and the guy was like just literally the most disrespectful. He would not answer any questions. He'd be like, "Yeah," and then he would keep going, like to his credit, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't really know." Yeah. It's like, dude, you didn't have to come on the show, dude. You're a punter, man. You're literally a punter. I don't get it, dude.
I guess on the bright side, I think he didn't play another snap in the NFL after we cut him for being just a terrible human and always outkicking the coverage.
Yeah, he was he played for that's right. He was one of the USFL or XFL guys. I always get those leagues confused, but he ended up going to one of those leagues too, and XFL. And Marquette King. I mean, it's just proof there. Like Melvin Gordon did a lot of dumb stuff with the fumbling and the off the field shit. He still got a whole bunch of opportunities. Marquette King was an asshole once, and they're like, "Dude, you're a punter. Like, never come here again." And they just got him. Yeah, so he was one I wanted to make sure to mention too, because I still hate that guy.
Yeah,
I hate him too. Jeremy in the chat said, "Can I nominate Nathaniel Hackett as a non-player?" Absolutely, you can.
I'm so happy you brought that up, man, because I had a list I was going to ask you guys: coaches and executives, coaches/executives.
Yeah, no, I think Hackett has to be number one on your list. It's one thing to get hired because you think you're going to lure Aaron Rodgers, but the fact that the Aaron Rodgers experiment has gone so poorly with the Jets over the past 2 years, that doesn't give a lot of leeway to George Payton, in my opinion, considering it may have gone even worse than trading for Russ, considering, we would have had to have brought in all of Aaron Rodgers' trash cans. But we hired this guy to be our head coach, and immediately he looked in over his head. Whole offseason, he said all the right things, but week one in Seattle, you just paid this dude, $250 million contract, and you decide in Seattle, of all places, place with like 80% humidity, to kick a 64-yard field goal rather than trust your offense to pick up 5 yards on a crucial fourth down. And by the way, we had like 500 yards of total offense in that game, but yeah, no, everything. The fullback speed option against the Texans on that bizarre third down. That was bad. And then it was just, Melvin Gordon was a problem that year too because he was like fumbling or whatever. But it seemed like the locker room was just kind of at odds with each other. Like I remember the defense, at the place I worked at, they'd always come in and they'd always just be absolutely livid at what the offense had to offer. Last thing I'll say is remember like all the fights that happened on the sidelines, and then Nathaniel Hackett would just go to the press conference and be like, "No, I didn't see that. I didn't know that even happened."
Oh my God. The guy was talking all off season too. He was like, I've bant thinking about the first play call I'm going to call. Like I've been losing sleep. I've been thinking about it for the last 6 years. And he calls a tight end screen to Fant. Like that's what you're losing sleep over, bro. A tight end screen. It went for like -2 yards. It was terrible.
It's like Madden and NCAA when tight end screens are like the worst plays in the whole game.
The worst plays. Like, dude, I mean,
and I don't think we've seen this in the NFL ever. Just having a coach that refuses to get a play call in on time. Like the fact that we were taking as many delay of games at home as we did, I don't think is anything you'll ever see in the NFL game.
They hired a timeout coach that ended up being the interim coach, and he was 100 times better than Hackett.
I was about to say,
it was so great when he fired Dwayne Stukes. It was so great when he fired Dwayne Stukes on special.
Oh my God.
Mr.
That
Talks,
was so good.
I know you alluded to, I know you told us this in like the Discord or whatever, but you said that you used to listen to the Rosberg press conferences to fall asleep, which I thought was so funny.
Oh yeah. Man, his 30-minute sermons up there just talking about this, that, and the other was just so funny.
He was like selling his little what were the chambers? What are those chamber things called? You just like sitting there and you sleep in them pretty much.
Yeah, the sleep chamber.
Yeah,
the recovery.
He was just
stuff.
like he was basically just selling it the whole time, talking about like, and then I got back and it related to football. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna start doing that. But Jerry Rosberg press conferences and just pass the hell out every night.
It puts you to sleep. And then I remember, man, with Nate Hackett. I mean, again, it's just acting like a 13-year-old in front of Sierra. You're a professional. Come on now, that was weird. And then again, just giving players hugs before practice during training camp. That is just something weird. That is weird.
There's a lot of red flags.
And which is why I think if I'm talking about my most hated executive, I mean, it's, not as many toxic, funny stories like that, but it has to be Joe Ellis, man. It has to be Joe Ellis. The theories of him, convincing Pat Bowlen to sign that change of the estate and everything like that to the trust and all that. He might have done that while he already had stages of dementia, then blocking the Kyle Shanahan hire. And he was probably
and Mike Shanahan.
Oh yeah, kept Mike Shanahan out, all that sorts of stuff. Ring of Fame, right?
Yeah, we kept him out from being the head coach. They wanted to bring him back as a head coach.
Oh man,
yeah, they wanted to bring him back, and then it was going to be like a sick team, which would have been kind of weird, but kind of cool. And he was like, "Nope." Wow. And then he wanted to hire Kyle Shanahan. He said, "You can only hire him if you don't allow Mike in the building." That was the stipulation.
And so then we got stuck with Vance Joseph. And I mean, it would have been pretty cool to have Kyle Shanahan here this whole time, man. It would have been pretty freaking cool. And and he probably had something to do with the whole Russ thing as well. And Nate Hackett and all that before they were out, before the new ownership group was in there. But I think, Joe Ellis couldn't even get a naming rights deal for the stadium for how many years? Just totally incompetent and a bitter, vindictive man, a small man.
He was number 3 on my list. You guys are knocking out all these. I had like a top 10. I just going down this rabbit hole yesterday.
Yeah. Who else you got on there? I guess Josh McDaniels.
Yep. I was going to mention him.
Yeah. He was my number. I had him in number 1, but you guys have talked me into Hackett because McDaniels still brought us. He actually drafted. He brought some pretty good players. He ended up going into like the Tebow years, which led us to the Manning years. So, but I just hated him because he was such an asshole. Like everything about, like at least Hackett is like he seems like a likable person, but like Josh McDaniels, I wouldn't want to like have a beer with him ever. It sounds like a terrible idea. So yeah, Josh McDaniels, Hackett, Joe Ellis, Jack Del Rio. We'll still hate him forever.
Mhm.
Basically giving up a freaking playoff game on purpose because he wanted the Raiders job. Screw him. Pat Shurmur. Can't stand him.
Wow, you got Pat Shurmur on the list?
I hate Pat Shurmur, dude. I thought he was awful. Talking about practicing incompletions.
I knew you were good.
And he was always an asshole to the media. He's like, there's only so much I can do as a play caller. It's like, yeah, you can stop calling like shitty plays. That you can start there. That's one thing. He was just he was so standoffish, which was annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, Pat Shurmur and Brock Olivo. God, we talked about him, I think, a while ago. Brock Olivo, and then my honorable mention for players was Kyle Orton, but I liked him.
I like Kyle Orton too.
Yeah,
he
I
was
met him
like
once. He's like the nicest guy ever, literally.
He was kind of like Jake Plummer in some ways, just kind of, didn't care much, but was like there to do his job type of thing. And after that one, like 2005, we got that out of Jake Plummer, but I know that he was known for kind of not wanting to take the off seasons very seriously and all that. But the one off season he did, we went to the AFC title game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Anybody else I'm missing? You guys think of
Dwayne
anybody else?
Stoops, dude. Dwayne Stoops under Hackett running the special teams. Who was that guy? It wasn't Deontay Spencer, was it? It was
Isaiah, was it McKenzie?
No, Montreal
Washington.
Oh yeah.
That guy would always put him back there without any accountability. That guy had no business being our returner. He was not ready. And it wasn't just that. I mean, it was the blocked punts, just total lack of execution in every single aspect of special teams. And then him having the gall in the press conference to saying, I don't need Jerry Rosberg's help after he was hired. I don't need him. I don't talk to him. I'm hired to do the job. He is not. Special teams was probably the worst I'd ever seen. And that's the first thing Jerry Rosberg did when hired interim head coach. Fired his ass.
He's like, of course you don't care about what I think. I don't either.
Yeah. It was so funny that from 2019 to 2021, we complained so much about Tom McMahon and, just his utilization, how he would deploy guys. And then somehow our special teams gets even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had Brock Olivo too.
Oh,
and both of those guys never coached again.
Wow, that's insane.
In both instances, then not even like as assistant special teams. They were like, nope. So, yeah, that was bad. Yeah, Dwayne Stoops is a good one too. I forgot how much of like an ass he was. He was like such a prick too.
He was so standout. Like he's like, I've come from working with what's his face out in LA, DeCamillis.
Oh, DeCamillis, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this guy acted like he was Joe DeCamillis, man. I just leave it to Nate Hackett to just hire an incompetent staff, except our D coordinator, whatever his name was. Is he even in? And he's kind of a dumbass too, because he didn't want to stick around because he was mad we fired Hackett.
I know.
Yeah.
And then he stayed in Carolina.
Yeah.
Is he anything now?
I think he got interviews last year, but I mean, obviously, what kind of disaster Carolina's gone through, like this past year. Yeah. I don't think he got interviews this cycle. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he's pretty well respected. I mean, he's made it through like 3 different coaches there. So, but yeah, it was there's so many. We could probably do like a 7-hour episode on just like guys we hate and members of the organization that we hate.
Free agent signings that I wish had worked out. Travis Henry, that's a throwback one.
That is
I was so excited for him to sign, and just didn't really see much of him.
Yeah, Jerry Rice would have been nice if he wasn't 40 when we signed him.
Yeah,
or whatever he was.
Yeah,
Jamal Charles.
Oh, I know. I was pumped for that one, but damn,
we signed Jamal Charles.
Yeah, remember 2017?
Yeah,
dude, I don't.
The year after we or maybe it was a year or 2 years after we had that fumble recovery on him. Yeah, he came. He was a shell of himself, though. I think he was just coming off of another ACL tear.
Yeah, he was washed.
And then he ended up retiring. Yeah, he was so good. God, there's a lot. There's probably so many we forgot about.
Garrison Hurst.
Forgot Bobby. Remember Bobby Massey? We signed him to be like this big right tackle. He ends up getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That was a random one. That was like a lot more recent than I had remembered. Yeah, there was quite a bit. There was quite a bit of guys that, or like guys that we drafted that I was super pumped about that ended up being like treacherous. I know there's a lot. I just can't think of any off the top. Like I was really pumped about Judy, and he was disappointing. But there was even worse than that.
Darius Watts, was he a second or third round pick? I was pumped for him.
Menelik Watson. Jerry, that's a good one. Menelik Watson's a good one. God damn, he was awful.
We've had so many right tackle busts that, yeah.
Before that, it was Donald Stevenson. Do you guys remember?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, Donald Stevenson was so bad.
We just whiffed twice on two free agent dudes. Yeah, there was a lot. Man, oh man.
Like I said, Browns of right tackles before McGlinchey turned us around.
Who is it?
Yeah, like I said, we were the Cleveland Browns of right tackles before.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, easily. Oh, easily.
Yeah.
And the best is like the best right tackle we had. Like remember when Manning came in the Chargers game, like right before the playoffs in this last year, and he was like, "I'm not coming in unless like you're putting Tyler Columbus because that dude can't play." Who was that guy?
It wasn't Ryan here. No.
He ended up having a decent. Ryan Hurst was our left tackle that year. He actually did really well.
He ended up playing guard. He ended up moving to guard.
Oh, Michael Schofield.
Michael Schofield.
Yeah, I remember him because I remember he allowed Mac to sack Osweiler 5-6 times in one game.
5 or 6 times. I think his PFF grade after that game was like 4.5 or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Michael Schofield. Yeah.
Yeah, we spent a high draft pick on him too.
Oh yeah, and in that same draft, I think the 2015 draft, in the second round, we picked Tyson Brilo or whatever. Also another guy who's like out.
I don't even remember him.
Yeah, he's like out. Yeah, he was a CSU guy. I remember a lot of people were like pumped. 14-year-old me didn't know anything about the NFL, but everybody was pumped about the dude. And then he ends up sucking like the rest of our O-line in that 2015 year.
Well, and then a lot of reports came out he was having a really good camp. People were pumped up about him. The coach was kind of like hyping him up, and then they just cut him. And they signed. Yeah, and they ended up like signing. I think Elway in the like before the season started was saying we're really impressed by him, and then they end up like I think it was the Menelik Watson or Donald Stevenson year, and it's like Tyson Brilo might have been a little bit better than them.
Yeah. One guy we haven't even mentioned yet. I remember I was 11 years old, freezing, in watching a Broncos playoff game in person, and I remember. I was on the opposite side of the stadium, but I remember seeing Joe Flacco hit Jacoby Jones 50, 60 yards downfield. And I remember as soon as that happened, you could hear a rat piss. And you just see Raheem Moore. You just see Raheem Moore try to knock the ball down, and he just whiffs in spectacular fashion.
Yeah. Never the same.
Raheem the Nightmare. He called himself Raheem the Dream. My dad called him the Nightmare.
Oh, man, that's great. Yeah. Man, he was.
No shit. He was awful.
Well, guys, I think we should end it on that note. We ain't going to have any more of those nightmares. We're about to be elite after we sign Chris Godwin, Najee Harris, and draft Colston Loveland. That's what we're going to do. Guys, thank you so much for being involved in the chat. Marc, Kodiak, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. Awesome. This is awesome.
Let us know real quick. Any sort of particular videos y'all got coming out that we need to keep our eyes peeled for?
Ooh, lots for me, man. A lot of film reviews I'm working on. I'm putting together like even some current Broncos. Like I want to do one on Troy Franklin, since my boy Kodiak thinks he's going for 1,100 next year. We're going to talk about how is he going to get 1,100 yards next year. So we're going to do some of that. We might look at like Isaiah Simmons. I got a video coming out on. Let me see. Hold on, I got a couple. Kyle Manon guy. So a lot of film reviews, and then we'll be breaking down a lot of different reports as they come in. And I'll probably start sneaking in as much Avs and Nuggets news now that there's a little bit of a break for them, but also because I'm kind of like, I don't want to keep putting out, mock drafts and stuff. And so, be on the lookout for that. If you guys like the film reviews and just talking about random, fun sports topics, y'all know what to do.
Love it. Kodiak?
Yeah, as far as me, pretty soon, since I got, the Guru Film Room thing, I can now watch all 22 college film. So I'm going to be making a video about like top 5. I already did top 5 running backs, but I'm going to do top 5 wide receivers, top 5 tight ends, top 5 defensive linemen, and maybe linebackers too, depending on how I'm feeling. So yeah, be on the lookout for that.
Love it. Well, I'll be
what
back
you got,
with something.
What you got cooking up, David?
Yeah. I don't have anything in particular, but I'll probably do another film review. I've just been watching a lot of the defensive linemen, so maybe Walter Nolan might be a guy to do next. I mean, he's fantastic, and I definitely need to look into Nick Amenlori. Hopefully, I got his name correctly, out of South Carolina, safety. So, I have also thought about doing a Troy Franklin video, but I probably won't do that for a while. So we got to do this panel again once we hit free agency and get a nice little reaction to this. But guys, really appreciate it. Again, smash that like and subscribe. Link to their channels, Marquee Sports, Kodiak Broncos Podcast, in the description. I'll be back tomorrow. As always, y'all go Broncos.
Go Bronco. Peace out, everybody.
High salute.